Well, good morning and welcome to stage 3 of AusCycling Esports stage race. I'm Kate Bates, joined by Kieran Lewis. And Kieran, we're 2 stages into the 3. We started off with a time trial in Bologna on Friday night. Yesterday, they tackled the big mountain with the radio tower. Today, well, I'd like to say it's a bit easier for them, but they're heading around Richmond for a couple of laps, and we know that's not a super easy course.
No, there's no easy laps out on Richmond, that's for sure. There's definitely a fair few steep little cobble climbs right at the end, as we're going to see here. We're starting downtown Richmond, a 2015 Worlds course, back when Peter Sagan famously took the victory in the men. You can see here going through that fast descent back around the back there, and that's when the course starts to really get meaty into Libby Hill and then 23rd Street. That's the main 2 climbs in the course, but let's not underwrite here. There is a long drag up to the finish line as well. And you would say maybe one for the sprinters, but I would say you're going to have to be one of those sprinter climbers or splimers, I believe the real world likes to call them. But we got 2 laps of the course today. Plenty of climbing as well in there. That's 288 meters overall. Assuming it's a pretty flat course, that sounds like a lot of climbing.
Yeah, well, 32.5 kilometres for the lap. They've got a 1K lead in. And as you point out, Kieran, those climbs, the Libby Hill, which of course has the famed cobbles. You almost feel like you're in Belgium for a moment there. And then the 23rd Street climb that is famous, as you say, because of what Peter Sagan did there in 2015. The women's winner, Lizzie Deignan, also really advantaged with that climb toward the finish. There are a lot of points for people to get quite aggressive and attack. So certainly, maybe some of the sprinters can survive, but I think it will be a bit of a drag race. Let's take a quick look at the standings so far, remembering that this is points aggregate, so you get the points for winning the stages. Kieran, talk us through it. It's pretty tight racing on both sides.
Yeah, crossing the women, we saw a very dominant race from Ange yesterday. She really led from the front the second we hit that KOM mark and didn't relent from there. She rode her own race. She led it from the front, and you'd say you saw the way you like to see a GC leader ride a race there, defending on the offense, as you say. But not to discredit Inghammer either. She rode her own race as well, conservative, kept Megan behind her to consolidate on that second place, and then obviously Megan as well down there in third place, riding still incredibly well in her own right. But overall, this race is still up for grabs. I mean, anything could happen today. Hammer with the win, and then Megan with second place. That would then suddenly make things all level at the top. So anything, as you can say in bike racing, anything can happen across there in the women. I'm excited to see, maybe Hammer's got some sprinting legs out there and ready to take the Hammer to Ange. But across in the men, it's very, very tight in that 1-2 position there. We had Tony Doherty. He did say he was a surprise packet on the first day. I don't want to discredit his real life credentials or anything, but a newer name on the Zwift platform, at least, that's for sure. And he dominated in that time trial. It was so far ahead by 50 seconds roughly. But backed it up, he showed that it wasn't just a fluke, backed it up and did an excellent race to secure that bronze medal position. And you see him leading that slender margin over Trent Stevenson, who is quite a noted Zwifter. He's level 50 on the platform, so he has to race against someone quite seasoned, that's for sure.
Now, I want to thank Inghammer for providing you with these delightful puns in commentary. It's half of the fun of Zwift commentary, I might say. We saw our winners yesterday, Ben Hill. He's not actually back today, which opens it up a little bit more, I would suggest. We do have some pictures soon, so we will jump down to the racing. Yesterday, the difference today, Kieran, it's only a couple of kilometres in terms of distance, but we expect today's race to be about 15 minutes shorter. It's a much sharper and snappier course.
Yeah, this will be quite a fast course. You got that descent. It starts predominantly flat, but then it leads into a descent, and that really will build the speeds up. You'll be seeing roughly 45, 50 kph average out here today from the Elite A's. And then, probably not too dissimilar in the women, at least 45, that's for sure. So it'll be a very, very fast race. I'd expect once we hit those climbs, that's where it's almost a hang on for dear life moment for a lot of these riders. It's almost an achievement just to make front group on a course like this. I would say, especially after that first lap, you'll reach that start finish line banner and take stock. Am I in the front group? Okay, brilliant. How are the legs? What am I feeling? Am I able to make the front group for the finish? And fingers crossed that I get an aero power up so I can make a difference in that sprint.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned power ups. They can definitely come into play on a course like this. Let's head down and take a look at the racing as it has just started. They're out on course 1.4 kilometres in. And we know that between now and that first ascent up Libby Hill, everybody is just posturing. There is often, Kieran, isn't there, on this kind of course, a little bit of hesitation in the field. They know what is to come and they don't want to do too much too early and put that in any kind of danger, the energy that they may need to go up those climbs.
Yeah, that's the thing with Richmond. 2 laps is a bit of a difference on this. 1 lap, it's a very much a all-out sprint fest right into the climbs. 2 laps, it makes things a bit more cagey. You need to protect the legs, you need to conserve what you can because that final lap is awfully brutal with those climbs at the back end of the race. As we're getting a close look here at Sam Mueller, he's obviously started out quite hard, racing aggressively from the Canberra Cycling Club there. Just a note on Canberra Cycling Club, they rode incredibly well in the esports series recently, just the 6-week series that we ran with AusCycling, and they actually took out second place, toppled only by their rivals, Vikings Club out of Canberra as well. So Canberra certainly taking the Zwift platform seriously right now, and Seb looking to maybe get a result here today as well. I don't think he raced the first 2 stages, but that doesn't discredit his chances today. He might be able to sneak a win.
Now, there are a few dynamics at play, aren't there? Because there are a few who are coming back for stage 3. There's some others who are turning up for their first day. And then we have people like Ben Hill who just got out there yesterday and threw an absolute cat amongst the pigeons. For that race, he obviously needed a few race Ks in his legs, and that was a good climb to do it. The other thing that we kind of touched on toward the back end of yesterday's race, Kieran, was the fact that upcoming is actually in February, the Esports World Championships back in Zwift, and the Aussie selectors will have their eyes open to see what talent may abound. Now, there's also the Oceania Championships coming up in Zwift, aren't there, that add as another selection race?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's that exciting time of the year once that world's announcement was made, and there's unique opportunities this year. I mean, for any of our listeners who are familiar with last year, it was pretty cut and dry. It was either you get selected by the national team or you receive a wild card slot. This year, though, it is back in the community. You have your own chance now to actually qualify with these Oceania qualifiers, or the regional qualifiers as they're called, for North American friends out there or the European friends out there. But yeah, I mean, the top 5 from each region qualify. There is 5 in total, so that means that there will be 25 unique special riders who got through based off these qualifiers off their own back and get to go and compete for their nation still. Because obviously, if you do win these qualifiers, you don't just get a wild card mark next to your name and you jump in the race and race in your community jersey, whatever it is. You do become a full-fledged member of your national federation. For Australia's sake, you can take us as an example. We've got 4 pre-selected riders that we'll have, but if we had 5 win our Oceania qualifiers, which I hope happens, fingers crossed, I'm very biased, but that would suddenly mean we have 9. So yeah, I mean, there's a huge credit and a huge carrot, out there for a lot of these riders today. They're sharpening their legs up. Those qualifiers are very soon. We're talking about, I think, in 2 weeks' time. So this is a great mark of, okay, where am I at against the Zwift racing community? This is top level talent out here. This won't be too dissimilar to the level they need to ride at in that race. So for a lot of these riders, they might have missed the first 2 stages, but that's okay. The qualifiers are just one race. So at the end of the day, they're just seeing how their legs shake up over one day.
I was about to say as they continue their slow march toward the climb, but there is absolutely nothing slow about it. They are heading toward the 50k an hour mark with an attack from Yamada here from Jet. This is quite brave, I would say, to attack at this point in the course, but we also have to consider that perhaps he might be setting teammates up. He would enjoy getting that thumbs up and getting that sprint jersey through there. Perhaps he was also going for that. Interestingly, though, Kieran, a number of power-ups being dropped in the bunch. It seems like slightly odd timing for that.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing here, I think it was actually Tony Doherty, by the looks of it, our leader, potentially dropping the draft power up. And I guess that's just you're new to the platform, a bit of a novice, almost a rookie to the Zwift racing platform, and you gotta take your cut your teeth kind of thing and learn that even a drafting power up can have its advantages at the right moments. I think. To run through all the power ups at play that we have in this race, we don't have the full suite that some of the ZRL races get, but we do have the stock standard, the aero power up, which obviously increases your speed over, I think it's roughly about 250-meter distance it is for 15 seconds. So it's however quick you're traveling, obviously, but that makes you an awful lot quicker. Everybody sort of just hopes and prays they get the aero. That is the best power up in game for a lot of circumstances. However, the next best would always be the feather, and on a course like this, I'd be hoping for a feather, that's for sure, to get over those climbs.
Yeah, so we'll just take a quick look over to the women. We only have two today. We've got McRae and Hammer, who they do have a very close race at the top of that table there. McRae won so comfortably, as you said yesterday, Kieran. But when it comes down to points, ultimately, it doesn't give her any bigger advantage on that overall leaderboard than simply winning. But it is great to see her repping Hawthorn and Evo. And for anybody watching, that's usual convention in this kind of racing, that you'll put your club first and then your esports team second. So Evo is who she races with, Evolution Racing in the Zwift world. That's how you can unpack it. I do notice that a lot of people change up their descriptions fairly regularly, and you can put whatever you like in there, hence getting delightful names like Birdie Num Num. Because it is absolutely at your discretion. I noticed in the men, Kieran, that we actually have Travis Frazier out there today from OMG. I think he's OMG. They killed Kenny, but he races in the community leagues that I've noticed a lot, the American, and he is sensational. He's a pretty handy sprinter, like a long-range sprinter, and so interesting to see him turn up today. This is definitely the kind of course that suits him. So great to see him jump in on something that he thinks he could light up a little bit.
I do recall racing against Travis last season, actually, when we kicked the ZRL off for racing against his team, OMG, and I can tell you he does pack a very handy sprint on him. I myself have no sprint whatsoever, so I can only watch and admire from a distance, but he sure did pack up a few of those races, and I know that our sprinter on the Rockets team that I do race for, we couldn't do anything. There was nothing we do against him. Be a good one to watch today. I could imagine he will get over the climbs. He's a handy rider. So yeah, you never know. I think he might be a bit of a marked man. I think a fair few of the riders out here would know him. If you are racing on the platform, that's for sure. But I can see he does have another teammate in there as well. As there was another OMG rider. I think it was M. Grenier. Yes, there he is. Maybe a few cards to play here for the OMG team.
Yeah, I like Michael Grinder as a rider too. He's been interesting to watch develop over the last couple of years. I'm noticing there's a little bit of chitty chat amongst the fellas about where Ben Hill may be, but perhaps he's on dad duties this morning, which is probably very likely, I would say. And now this is a bit of a reminder of what they're battling out there today. So it is 32.5 kilometres, and there's certainly some very big lumps. Although, you look at this and it looks like you're climbing outwards quite a number of times, but they're shorter, sharper climbs. They're quite steep. 23rd Street is nice asphalt, but Libby Hill, Kieran, it's got cobbles, and it certainly is one where power-ups come in very handy, as does position in the bunch, because once that gap opens up, it can be quite a trouble.
Yeah, and we should mention how long these climbs are just for our viewers. They're about, a 90-second effort when we're talking about the Libby Street Hill. 23rd, I'd say, is for these guys going to be maybe 30-second effort today, roughly, somewhere around that distance. So they're very short, they're sharp, they're going to be very high in power. That, a 90-second effort is one of the worst efforts to do in cycling, I would say. I certainly didn't like it. I think you might have liked it, Kate. It definitely was in your wheelhouse, but boy, was it not in mine.
Hold on, let me correct you there, though, Kieran. There's a difference between being good at it and liking it. I like
100%.
but
No, but we're talking. The powerful riders today can have an advantage over what we think is a climber that might suit the climb that's a bit steep and short. That they're not, I don't think, realistically. And it looks like these riders aren't really exactly just riding around easy. 250 watts for these guys, probably not exactly on the pedals too hard, but it's not, sitting up and cruising either. We're looking at Tony Doherty here, our GC leader, and he's sitting at 163 heart rate. Noted off yesterday, I did see him up around the 190, 200 kind of range. So his max is not too dissimilar to mine. So I can tell you safely that 163 isn't exactly feeling pretty on the bike. But at the same time, he's not hurting just yet. He's got a fair bit in reserve. So all that means is once we get to these climbs, you're not just arriving at them fresh and ready to go. You've actually raced. Hopefully what it means for Tony's sake is he's ready to go. Once he's at these climbs, he's warmed up.
Yeah, good pickup. His heart rate was really high yesterday, and I'm of the opposite ilk of you, Kieran. I have quite a low maximum heart rate. So for me, if I see anything over about 175, I start thinking too much more and I may drop dead. So to see riders pushing up to 180, 190, I shiver in my commentary seat. But we do know that he can recover quite well from those long sustained efforts. And he did a really fabulous job yesterday, climbing at his own pace and then really reeling in Juricic toward the end there and making some real gains. And to most importantly, I think, keep ahead of Trent, who was, knocking on the door. And it's those pair that we need to look at for the overall here today, because kind of regardless of where they finish in the bunch, they don't need to be 1 and 2, Kieran. They just need to be, if Trent Stevenson can finish just a couple of places in front of Tony Doherty, that'll be enough.
Yeah, that's where the interesting part of the GC battle comes into play here. We noted earlier that for a lot of these riders, they can race for some individual glory with noted things ahead on the calendar. But for these two, it's all about the GC and it's about racing each other. They could end up marking each other out of the race when it gets down to the climbs. I for sure, if I was Tony, I'd just have my little avatar constantly looking for Stevenson's wheel and not going anywhere too far away from him. This is that time where the GC leader should just defend. I always love to say how Andrew rode yesterday is very, very classy. I love to see a GC leader leading from the front. It's always nice to see, and it's a great way to ride. But when it's on the final stage, it's time to be coy, I would say. I don't know how Tony's legs are feeling it just yet, but he did dominate that time trial. He obviously had to put a fair bit into that effort yesterday to remain in front of Stevenson up that climb. So I wouldn't imagine he's feeling too fresh today, and his heart rate right now tells me he's hurting quite a bit. Actually, he's bumping up towards 170, and we're only on the flat here. We haven't even reached the climbs just yet, but no, it'll be quite interesting to see once we get to this final climb. We're not too far away there. For the listeners out there looking at the top right-hand corner, that little hairpin up ahead signifies the swing around and we line up Libby Hill.
Indeed. That is when we do start doing that little hairpin, that's kind of where it starts in earnest. And we do often see people really jockeying for position through this. You mentioned that, Tony Doherty could today quite foreseeably just sort of get a match on Stevenson and sort of follow him around. Isn't that a real interesting difference between IRL racing and Zwift, is that if you are in a bunch, you can literally eyeball and follow someone the whole time. It's a little bit harder to do in this scenario. You can certainly play around with your view and try and make sure you do that. But I think that there is a little bit more scope to kind of sneak away from somebody within the bunch when they do it. Now, they're turning this corner that we just discussed. This is the very gentle start to Libby Hill. Pretty soon it's going to be not so gentle. We often see this area being kind of a hotbed for the early attacks, but it looks like so far they're going to go in fairly conservatively and wait for those cobbles to bite.
Yeah, it looks like the riders here are just looking at one another. Who's going to lead from the front? Tony's taking up a place right at the front as we just touched on him. But yeah, I think it's going to be a real feel-out climb here. I think that's what we're going to see. We'll definitely have one or two potentially trying to shake it off the front, but I think what's going to predominantly happen is the bulk of the riders will look at each other, they'll remain together and piece it together back over the top. I hope for something different. I hope for, ones and twos all the time. That's what I love to see in racing. But seeing someone drop an aero power up awfully early, I think that might be Yamada again. I'm not too sure. I might be wrong there. But yeah, definitely odd. I would say odd power up choices quite early. I would wait until the last bit of the climb, even for an aero. We can see Zito moving off the front here now as well. That's a lot of orange numbers being dropped by riders just everywhere. This is where it really starts to get hard as we zigzag our way. And now we've hit the cobbles of Libby. You can see this is where it really starts to bite in for these riders, Kate.
Yeah, you're right. You look to the right and all you see is a sea of orange. Not quite so much attacks, more just really pushing off the front and ramping it up 14% around that corner, but they can see the arch at the top. At this point, to have a wheel, they are fairly safe. Ojasan, Watanabe, and Lee are the three that are leading, but that bunch is not too far behind. Devlin for World Elite Zwifters looking fairly comfortable. And there's our boy, Travis Frazier. We knew that he's got the punch to go over this climb in the front group. Now, this is a really important part of the course because there's a lot of people who have just suffered over that climb and managed to keep in touch with the bunch, but are certainly suffering. Even we're watching Devlin at the moment. His heart rate is certainly pushing right up there. Now, this is a big opportunity for a rider who is just sitting in and feeling quite fresh. This is a great place to actually lay down and attack and just get 1 or 2 seconds before that 23rd Street climb. It looks to me at this point like while some gaps are opening up, Kieran, they're not super motivated to really push overly hard here, and I think we'll see a regroup.
Yeah, I think so, Kate. I mean, it's very hard to go at this point if you've got to be feeling awfully good. And you said yesterday we wish Marco was here. This is a course Marco would love. He would be pushing it at any moment there's a lull. But here we go up 23rd now. We see a fair few featherweights being dropped and a 11.4 watts per kilogram surge by Callum Pearce here. Oh my God. It's just absolutely pushing it at the front. He's looking quite strong, Callum. I noted him yesterday. He went quite early as well. I don't know that he has the legs to go all the way, but maybe, I'd definitely watch him today. He's obviously got some good legs to drop out at an 11.4 watts per kilogram surge off the front. But, now it looks like everybody is moving back in together now. We're seeing a regroup. Let's keep an eye out. Remember, we're watching Tony Stevenson and Tony Doherty and Trent Stevenson, our two GC rivals.
Well, Connor Pearce, that was a big effort from him. The Z-Sun rider certainly on paper has a fairly exceptional CV. 13.5 watts per kg for 15 seconds is his PB. So watch out when Connor Pearce gets wound up and going. I'm really interested to notice that Luc Gilbert has moved up as well, the Canadian. On paper, he is the most powerful man we have out on course. He's an over 1,000 watts kind of sprinter. Him and his fellow countryman Merlin Dallaire. So they're the two that we can kind of keep our eye on, that if they are in that front group, they will be danger toward that back end. I think that Dallaire is in the second chasing group, but they're the kind of danger men. Now, you kind of mentioned earlier, Kieran, that you could play this a number of ways for Stevenson and for Doherty in terms of trying to get this overall. And there is definitely a tendency, like a tradition in cycling, isn't there, to want to see them race from the front and show us some heroics. I mean, after all, this is entertainment, right? But if we just drill 100%. Back a little bit from that, this is an opportunity for them to just look after themselves and ride a very smart tactical race. We'll take a look at the replay. Kieran, talk us through some heroics from Pearce here.
Yeah, he just went early, he had the bright power up. You see there, he's dropping the feather right at the perfect time, really, as we're just starting that steep ramp. And then he immediately, it was 13.5 watts per kilogram. Wow, that is an amazing effort. You can see his heart rate at 190 BPM, but I guess he just wanted to lay his cards down, send a warning shot to everyone. I'm a rider to be reckoned with today. I wouldn't give me too far. And he's really pushing the pace over everyone behind him. Riders guys are scrambling, they're doing what they can. This is one of those climbs where you just got to grit the teeth. It's almost, because you're on a trainer, at least you can shut the eyes and just bear it and try and go as hard as you can. But you can see as he gets over the top, he's topped out at 200 BPM. So that was a flat out effort for Pierce. But your man back there, Frazier, was the rider who actually was able to shut him down. So I think there's a fair few good, motivated climbers in this bunch behind that they might have something to say. But one thing I've been noticing here, I've been watching Tony and Stevenson, and they're actually, Stevenson's in the lead group at the moment, and Tony's in the chase group. So Stevenson's racing as you would want to see. He's doing everything you need to do to win this bike race today or win this tour. And Tony now needs to chase. He's got 9 seconds to that group in front. Stevenson's actually the one pushing the pace of the group, so he's very motivated to keep them away. And you can see Tony here is just scrambling. He's just got to get back on terms. And anyone that races on Zwift knows that once you're out of that draft, it is hard. You need to dig, and you need to dig immediately, because that gap just, it compounds. It's like compounding interest at the end of the day, for our finance lovers out there. It just gets worse and worse and worse. But you can see here, he isn't doing this easy. 185 BPM. He's got one of the Inc. riders, the Innovation Cycle team, with him, which isn't good. That's not a good thing for him, because Innovation Cycle is actually Stevenson's team. So he's got a rider marking his every move. And Kate, I'm sure you're very well aware of this, but it's such a psychological blow. Once you've got a rider sitting your wheel and you're trying to shut a group and you're getting no help from that rider with you, oh boy, if he gets back onto the front terms here, he deserves the GC win. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, we do cater for all, Kieran, including our finance lovers. I'm one of those, so that works for me. An observation about Tony Doherty. I think he's the strongest man in the bike race, but he keeps getting this. We saw this yesterday as well. He gets himself caught out, and then he's on the back foot and having to throw these massive watts out to try and chase across. He's actually bringing this gap back ever so slightly. He's dropping the guys that he was with, so it's not even a case of them not helping with the work. But I'm wondering about this bike choice, Kieran. I feel as though we need to give Tony a bit of Anna Russell's whiteboard love and help him with his setup and maybe a little tactics, because there's no questioning that he does have the watts in the tank.
100%. We touched on bike selection yesterday and how important it can be, but for a course like this, that's such a varying terrain. Obviously, Tony might be too low level to have the Tron, as many of the riders in front of him does, but there's plenty of other bikes out there once you delve into the garage, as we call it on Zwift, to pick from. And what you'd want today is something that has a bit of aero capabilities, especially if you're finding yourself in a position like this chasing. And what he's on right now, a Trekker with lightweights, is what we'd call our lightweight builds. That's for going up out the Zwift, that's going up for on top, those kind of climbs. I wouldn't say it really suits a predominantly flat course with a couple sharp climbs. I don't think that's the right kind of bike for what I would say would get you around here the quickest. But he is doing an awfully good job here to keep this gap at bay. He's slowly chipping away. It's down to 7 seconds now. He's staying consistent on the power. He's not really dropping below 350 watts at any point here. He got some funny comments in the chat there from many of the riders, maybe trying to psych him out, saying it's a time trial versus a team time trial. But maybe it's not so much just a team time trial, because we can see here that Trent is absolutely drilling it on the front. He does not want that rider to come back. He's very well aware that this is a GC battle, and it's the deciding battle right now is what we're watching.
Yeah, it is smart riding from Stevenson, and Gilbert appears to be having a little bit of giggle at Doherty's expense. He's our sprinter from Canada. Hot tip, anybody in that front group, you don't want to take him to the finish with you, because if his numbers are anything to go by, it will certainly suit him to a T. We might see him sitting on. He can do that. Isn't that a thing, Kieran? The sprinters often cop a little bit of flack for not necessarily contributing equally to breaks, and I'm not saying that is happening, but we do see that happen with sprinters. But tactically, they're absolutely well within their right to do it. There's no rule out there that every rider must contribute equally to any chase, and in fact, you often have to do the slightly unpopular thing and make sure your legs are freshest at the end. 7 seconds for Tony Doherty. It is coming down, but not at a rapid rate. And this would certainly be really wearing at him. But he is sitting at significantly higher powers than this front group. So if he can hold on to that, he's clawed it back to now 6 seconds. We can see him in the background. My legs are burning just watching this, as are my lungs. I think this is the hero moment for Tony. If he gets back on, Kieran, he has got to find a good wheel and not let it go.
Oh, 100%. But we're watching Trent here pushing it on the front. He saw that it had closed down to 6 and he's immediately gone to the front and said, come on, guys, let's lift this pace. I do not want that rider to come back on. Because let's look down the list there. No one else there really is challenging him on GC. But we're getting a good look in here at the women's there with Ange just deciding, no, I want to actually do this one on my own today. I want to solidify that win. And she's just gone out. She's obviously laid the hammer down over hammer once again, to reuse my joke from yesterday. But she's absolutely pushing it once again. She's obviously pushed it hard over the hills, the Libby Hill and then 23rd. And it looks like she's going to take a comfortable win down there. But it looks like Hammer's not lying down or anything. You know, it looks like about a 30-second gap there. She's got some white numbers on the screen, the glowing white numbers. That solidifies that, you know, a rider's now on the pedals. You know, they aren't doing it easy. Still pushing on, that's for sure. So credit to Hammer. She's going to ride for that silver medal, that's for sure. And she's going to get that in for her cycle club. But no, what we're watching here in the men is quite an exciting battle. It seems Tony is losing it at the moment. It's back down to 8-9 seconds now, even as we went through that hairpin. You know, the group effect, just to touch on that, the drafting effect in Zwift, it does benefit the group so much. You know, a one rider versus, what do we got in front there? 7. I mean, even out in the real world, we know how hard that can be. When you go into Zwift and it's all about the grouping effects in and out of the corners and all the different surges from behind that you get in the changes of pace versus just one rider punching into the wind, it's a very, you know, it's a mountain ahead of you. And maybe it is poetic that he is on a mountain climbing bike, because that's what he's facing right now. He's got a massive mountain to climb.
I think the gold medal for the puns and the funny jokes goes to you today, Kieran. You're on fire for a Sunday morning. Tony Doherty, you're right. He's starting to fade a little bit, and it's painfully slow, the fade as well. It's not like that gap is just blowing out massively. He is still holding on to some pretty solid watts, but just the speed he can maintain at those watts does not necessarily measure what's going on at the front here. It made me think, Kieran, when you were talking about the women's race and Ange McRae goes solo again. I used to race with a lady by the name of Zulfia Zabarova, and she was from Kazakhstan. She was national champion from Kazakhstan, a very, very good international level cyclist, won some World Cups and such. And I got in a break with her at the Women's Giro one year, and she looked, and it was just the two of us, and she looked over at me and in a very heavy Kazakh accent said, "I only ride solo." And then she attacked me and she won the stage, and I don't think I finished in the top 50 that day. And it's a very strong memory for me. Every time I see riders like Ange, they just have a real preference for riding solo, and they have the goods to back it up.
Oh, that's definitely winning a psychological battle right there. That is a very strong message to send, that's for sure. I can tell you, someone did that to me in a bike race and then immediately went off the front. I would just, I'd put the tail between my legs and say, okay, well, I'll stay in the back fence. But no, it's you gotta give the tip of the hat to Tony right now. He hasn't given up. He's back there, and he's you know, it's dropped down to 9 seconds, but looking at him right now, he's sitting on 7 watts per kilogram, 5 watts per kilogram. He's obviously trying and scrambling. He doesn't want to let it go. And, you know, any rider that doesn't give up the fight is definitely worth their weight in gold, that's for sure. I mean, you never know here. Stevenson, he could crack out of this front group and start to ride back towards him. And if Tony is riding within himself just enough, I don't know that he is. He's just trying to get back on the wheel. It could come back together. You know, it's not done just yet. And that's just because Tony isn't willing to give up the fight. He really wants that win today, and he'd love that GC win, you know, for his VAU team. which is actually one little point I wanted to touch on. So his team, Velo AU, is actually one of the team is one of the riders, sorry, that is going for the Zwift Academy finals. Imogen Coulter, I think her name was. Sorry, I might have gotten that wrong. Kate, you might have a bit more insight there than me, but she actually rides for the same team as him in IRL. So that's our lovely little segue into ZA today. Tony's actual team member in real life gets to have a chance to go for that Kenyan SRAM contract.
Yeah, Imogen Alton, she is just an absolute rock star. And in fact, after the names were announced, I did a little bit of a deep dive on all of the Aussies that are heading over to Spain for those finals. And it's a pretty exciting young group. One of the ladies, Rachel Wales, she's actually doing her Masters in Public Health at the moment. She's a very smart young lady in her early 20s and just building tremendously through the sport. And when you do dive into her Zwift power and you can see some of these incredible numbers she's putting out, it's no wonder at all that the selectors have seen something in her and the coaches and want to see a little bit more, which raises an interesting point, Kieran, because we were talking earlier about the World Championships coming up and the selectors for that. And it's a bit unlike any other selection process, isn't it? That for once you actually get to just dive onto this platform and really analyse their racing capabilities, quite separate to how we actually see them perform in the races, just based on the numbers. So it is quite interesting. I have to say, right now, Tony Doherty, despite where he is in the race, his numbers will be looking very, very impressive. He's been sitting over 5 watts per kg the entire chase. I mean, I think I'm going to just float it, Kieran. I'd love to see a Zwift hour record where you just choose a course and everybody has to go solo, and let's see how far they can get within that time. Kind of would suit Tony Doherty, I reckon, based on this effort we're seeing.
No, that's actually an interesting concept, Kate. I might have to note that one down and bring it up to the team later on. I might steal that one from you. But no, he's certainly doing an amazing job there. I mean, you know, it's the race is going away from him here, sadly, and I'll put the curse on him right now and say I think the race is done for Tony. But I do want to give him I'd say early ride of the day. You know, he didn't give up. I don't think he will give up. I don't think that's in his vocabulary. I think he's going to ride all the way to the finish today. He's going to finish this off, and you never know what's going to happen ahead. You know, I think Stevenson needs to finish at least 3 places ahead of him to get the clear GC win. So we'll keep an eye on that. You know, the race isn't exactly done just because he's out of that front group. But I think it looks like Stevenson is riding quite well. There he goes. He gets the Rider of the Day tag. He's doing an incredible job back there, though, and he does really deserve that one. You know, he's definitely pushing on. He's still sitting around that 300 watts. You know, he's maybe giving it a shout to the selectors of, hey, why not have a little look at me? I could be a rider that's worth something of note to the team. You know, maybe a good domestic for the esports squad as we're getting very close to selection time. You know, they'll be in December when those teams are getting picked out.
So they're not too far now off heading toward Libby Hill again. They've got a bit of a descent and then that flat run across and getting ready for that climb. This is a small group, but they're working very well together. We've got 9 of them in there. So this is a very cohesive group. I'm noticing a little bit of a trend here, Kieran, that starts with true and ends with on. There's a whole lot of Neo bikes here, aren't there?
Yeah, it certainly is the best bike for any varying terrain. We were just having a chat earlier with Anna, our producer, that I'm quite lazy in my bike selection. I love a Tron, and this is one of those courses where there's an age-old saying, don't know what to go with, just go with the Tron, and that's one of these courses. It's very varying terrain. There's a bit of climbs, bit of flats, bit of downhill. You need something quick in a sprint, pick the Tron, why not? But to get that bike is no easy feat. You need to actually select a challenge in Zwift called the Everesting Challenge, which is climb the total distance of Everest. But that isn't how you get the Tron. That's actually how you get the Trekker Monda, the bike that Tony's on. So obviously Tony's working his way towards it. what you need to do is continue climbing with that challenge selected to get to that 50,000 meters vertical gain. And then at that point, that's when you get the Tron. And it is a very nice moment. I mean, a lot of our community members out there in all their community groups, whether it's the racing community or just the exploring community, whatever bucket you sit on the Zwift platform, everyone celebrates that day they get their Tron. I certainly remember the day I got mine. I was in the Zwift HQ office down here in Melbourne, and I celebrated with the team. It was always fun, and it's something that everybody does at Zwift. It is actually a thing. Part of the questions we always ask each other at HQ is, first off, what level you are, but then have you got the Tron yet? That's a big thing, that's for sure. But no, we're getting our way now back up and around the hairpin up towards the Libby Hill climb once more.
Well, this is the point where I realise, and Anna, the producer, is mocking me in the background. Thank you, Anna. Is where I admit, Kieran, that I forgot to sign up for the challenge. And I spent a lot of time climbing Ventoux and Alpe d'Huez and roping people in to climb it with me, only to realise I never signed up for it, and I consequently do not have my Tron. So, I don't know what you're talking about when you say how proud you felt the day you got your Tron. I'm not sure if I will ever get there now, to be honest, but I'm that dingbat who did that. So it is very important to understand what's going on in game.
I can safely say, Kate, you're not alone in that one. I was talking to a couple of people at our office, but two of them did the exact same thing. I myself did the same thing. I lost 20,000 meters before I selected it. It's one of the funny quirks of Zwift is I've climbed 50,000 meters already. Where is my Tron? And it's, did you select the challenge? No, you need to actually select the challenge, unfortunately. Yeah, but no, it is interesting though. I was taking stock of the riders in here, and that our Canadian sprinter there, Gilbert, he actually has a team member with him of that restart team. So they got cards to play. There's two Canadians in here. Deloire was the other rider, Merlin Deloire. So two cards to play for restart, and I got to say, both of them have pretty nice sprints on them. So I don't know who's going to win out of them, but I'm going to think that the winner today might be Canadian.
Yes, well, they certainly do have very, very good sprints on them. They are the two most powerful, just in raw numbers, riders in the race. We do have Rhys Edwards back chasing with Mitch Zito, and he delightfully has Pizza Boy after his name with a little pizza emoji. So we can delve into that, but I'm suggesting that perhaps he's a pizza fan, or he works for Domino's, either or. Right, so we're not too far off the very steep part of this climb now. Attack from Oja-san. Now, he went over the top in that top three in the last lap, so we know that he's got good legs up here. But I don't expect the gap to open up too far, because this group is a tight group in terms of capabilities. They just have to suffer over this section. The next little kicker is 14% up these cobbles. Once they get around this next corner, they are pretty much high and dry at the top, and I think they can survive. But it is telling that we are seeing a lot of orange numbers to get to the top of this. And it's not that usual on a climb to see the orange numbers. We see consistently high, but not necessarily that high. But that is the nature of this very steep climb. Fraser goes over first, or Lee goes over first ahead of Fraser. Oja-san in second. The Canadian sprinters, Gilbert. Now, I think earlier I called him Gilbert. I am a bit of a Gilbert fan, so that was a slip of the tongue. Connor Pierce there as well. And as you point out, there is a teammate there in Merlin Dallaire. Trent Stevenson rolling over safely as well. Tony Doherty, he's now 25 seconds back. He's still sitting around that 5 watts per kg mark. And in fact, he's averaged 5.1 for this race so far, where the next highest is 4.4, and that's for Connor Pierce. So there is quite a different differential. And I'm just thinking as well, perhaps, Kieran, we can have like a best watts per kg kind of award for these sorts of races for those that are still learning how to race in the Zwift world.
100%. I think that's yet another little mini award from the commentators for Tony in that one. 5.1 average is that's brutal. We're hitting 23rd Street here, and it looks like I'm watching the Canadians, and I think they've gone to the Robbie McEwen school of how to climb as a sprinter. Start at the front, drift to the back of the group, because that's exactly what they did on Libby, and that looks like exactly what they're doing on 23rd. But it's Pierce once again. He does love 23rd Street, doesn't he? He's leading from the front on here. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like quite enough to break that elastic this time up either again, with Fraser now being the one mopping it up once again. So it's very similar scenes to the first lap up there. I think we're going to go down to a sprint here, Kate.
Yeah, what I really like about Fraser in all the racing I've watched him do is he's a very efficient rider, and he does pack the punch from a Watts perspective. He's more than capable, but he does know the wheels to hold. He's very good at crossing over in second or third and making sure he's quite safe and can then take the recovery. He's in the super tuck coming down here, so he's absolutely making the most of every up and down. We did discuss yesterday the perils, the pluses and minuses of that super tuck and how it might make your legs feel. I think it is a little bit different when you're on a dynamic course like this, where those ups and downs are much shorter. The tendency to make your legs feel like they've got concrete in them is certainly a little bit lower. And it's only a short period that they can super tuck, but I'm kind of excited to see these tactics playing out. They're very clearly thinking about what's coming up, and that is the sprint. So remembering we're within the final couple of kilometres now for these guys, there will be a lot of posturing going on. And another quick shout out, I'm just going to keep doing it all day, back to Tony Doherty, who's now over 6 watts per kg, still plugging away back there and chasing. It is not outside the purview to perhaps see Trent Stevenson finish toward the back of this pack and Tony Doherty still get that over.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's Tony has done what he needs to do today. You know, he unfortunately didn't have the legs to make this front group, but he's doing everything he can to still potentially be in the pegging for that win. You know, he's stayed in front of that chasing pack behind. That's what was necessary. And with Stevenson potentially not having the best legs for a sprint, hey, anything can happen here. But we're now on that final long drag. If we recall back to when we were watching that profile, this is that drag to the finish. And this is, you know, it's an opportunist climb, I would say, this one. You know, the way I like to race these courses, I would have attacked. It's the only way I can win. I have no sprint, so I would have attacked by now. So looks like we got a lot of sprinters. Someone's dropping a feather early. There's a few draft power-ups being dropped as well. Pierce at the front, leading from the front right now. But everyone, I think, has each other's number by the looks of it. Everyone's looking at each other. There's no one really willing to hit the orange numbers just yet. We're about probably 600 meters out. I think it's about 600 meters from this final corner here. So that's what we're going to, here we go. Yes, we're getting Ojasan now hitting the orange numbers early. That is a very early move there. Pierce the one to react now. No, it's all coming back together, but Ojasan's still pushing. He does have a gap here. He's still pushing on. He's not relenting, and we don't see any of our restart riders doing anything about this just yet. So the team card not being played just yet, but we're seeing 2 arrows being dropped there. It is actually Trent Stevenson, our GC contender. I think he wants to lead from the front and actually take this out by the looks of it. And wow, what a sprint from Stevenson. That is absolutely unreal. What a dominant ride from him. And he has taken the race by the scruff of the neck here. But I think it might be a little bit too early. We do have our Canadian sprinter, Gilbert, coming onto the wheel there. Very Gilbert-like sprint, as Kate said. But no, he does pip him on the Rhine. But tip of the hat there to Stevenson. He has taken out the GC win. We can call that quite early. That's quite a clear-cut win for him. But this man right here, our rider of the day, Tony Doherty, has done an absolutely unreal job. He did what he could do. He put everything on the line to ride, to defend that GC. Unfortunately, not quite enough today, but no, he has done an excellent job, that's for sure. And he's secured 8th, which will get him 2nd overall in the AusCycling Esports Tour.
That was brilliant from Stevenson. There's a bit of a battle back here for the 3rd with Zito. So let's see how they play this sprint out. Now, they are in no rush to get to the finish. Clearly 23k an hour. They are going up the climb. But we did notice, Kieran, that the bunch in front of them pushed a little bit harder up here. In fact, posturing for that. Those power-ups are being dropped. They are just finding their legs going in. There's our pizza boy. And Windsor, you talked about him yesterday, 65 years of age. What a legend to have out there. And he is pushing off the front there, certainly trying to get a jump on them. Devlin will not let it happen, though, but Zito hot on his heels.
Yeah, this is our battle for the final podium place there. I know that Chris Pearce maybe might have surged his way up to bronze. I'm not too sure. We're going to have to see how it shakes down. But Zito is the one that was currently holding bronze, and he's the one who's defending right now in front of him. We're seeing it just at the back of the pack here. I do like to see the little GC battles just battling between each other. But it was Zito that took out the win there to keep himself in front of Windsor. I'm not too sure that's just enough to keep it at the front. We'll have to see how it shakes out across on Zwift Power. But let's watch Ange now take it to the line. What a dominant ride from Ange. From start to finish, it's going to be 3 gold cups for Ange. And she's looking very strong out here on Libby Hill, Kate.
Yeah, she's had a brilliant day, the Hawthorn Evo rider. And I'm just going to pause for a moment, give her a few style points too, Kieran, because her matchy outfit from the hat to the socks and a nice subtle bike, the bike choice with the disc wheel, she has absolutely nailed it today. She's got a pocket full of thumbs up because she's done such a sensational job. But Ange McRae has really had a brilliant weekend here. And Hammer, she's still riding her own race there behind it, but McRae's certainly not sitting up and rolling it in. She's going to push all the way there. So we'll go and have just a quick look at how it is playing out in the men, because we've had our winner, Trent Stevenson, was second, but he will be our overall winner. And, of course, Tony Doherty as well. So let's take just a look at this replay. Kieran, Connor Pearce was the one who hit out pretty early chasing Ojasan, but that was the perfect timing. If we just look to where Stevenson is, he's actually just sitting quite pretty within the pack. And when he decided to move, he did it with intent, some massive numbers, and the timing was absolutely perfect.
It really was. He did everything he could here. Obviously, I think Gilbert had the power advantage over him, but he used his timing to his skill set. Obviously, it wasn't enough to just secure that exact win, but it was enough to definitely get that silver place, which gets him the win on the GC. And you can see here, he hasn't let up. He did that immediate spike to get out and clear wheels in front and hold off the field. But Gilbert, sprinters know how to sniff the right wheel out, and that's what he did. He saw that Stevenson was the one moving. He grabbed it early. He surged across the top there, just at the line, and managed to take out a lovely win for him.
He's our man of the moment, Tony Doherty. It's I love the kind of racing here, Kieran, where we can pick out so many different things. It's certainly not just about who crosses the line first, but what happens in the other end of the racing. Now, Kieran, we head over to Zwift Power to find the results.
Yeah, that's right. Unfortunately, we're not able to get the live results for this one, just on a few of the background things at the moment. But go to zwiftpower.com. It's the AusCycling Stage races. Its name on there. There's a separate men's and a separate women's category to take a filter through. There's also team classifications out there for those club riders who are doing it for the glory. I think it was Innovation currently leading the charge there, but AusCycling themselves will make an announcement on which club did win overall. And I will say currently I do race for the Hawthorn Cycling Club, and I did see Ange taking that win out, so potentially maybe we're going to see a surge up the table from them.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you to everybody who has been involved. Please send your feedback to AusCycling so we can get more of these events happening. Kieran, thank you very much for the entertainment in the commentary box. I have literally written down some of your best lines. I'll be saving them for another time. To our production crew, Anna Russell, thank you. You have been amazing. And this collaboration between AusCycling and Zwift is absolutely fantastic. Now, we've got a couple of ideas for the awards we want thrown out there. Best Power is a really good one for the rider of the day. I think Tony Doherty takes a lot of those. Maybe not first across the line, but a lot of those other ones. So we will see you soon. There's some more racing upcoming. Bring your friends, bring your family, get involved. It's a whole heap of fun. And we will see you soon.